All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here nice and early again. I know it's tough. Of course, of course. All right, this morning we're lucky enough to have with us another living legend, this time in a different era of surf, an interesting era that had its own special history. Between Bob and John Blair, they're probably the most knowledgeable people on the planet about what happened because they were there. They experienced it. They went through it. They were the ones pioneering the path in those years coming out of the dark era, the dark days. Yeah. Between, let's say, 65 or so, going through John Blair's book in 78, it's a dark period. There was still interest, but there were not new bands, like the Surf Raiders or John and the Night Riders. And thank God we had people like John Blair and Bob Dalley to do this and really start the revival. If it weren't for those guys, I don't even know if we would be sitting here today doing this. It was dead, gone, no surf. So, big thanks to you guys for that. But let's start with just a little introduction. In case you don't know Bob Dalley, who doesn't know? Just be honest. Like if you don't know the history of Bob Dalley, raise your hand. Okay, so not only an incredible musician, songwriter, band leader, but a writer, researcher, and one of the world's foremost experts on Utah dairy tokens and milk bottles.
And milk caps.
And milk caps.
And milk caps.
And milk caps. Don't forget the milk caps. So, not only brilliant in the ways we know, but in ways no one even knows. Not to mention an incredible family man, father, grandfather, brother. Just like one of the good ones, There's a few of those you meet in your life, and Bob is one of those guys.
It's okay to say thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now, what did my thing go? We need to talk about this. I think first, really, because Surf Raiders, but probably the lasting legacy for the rest of the world is going to be this baby. Now, raise your hand if you don't have this. All right. Please do yourself a favor. Like, I don't normally push merch this much, but you have to own this book. There's no excuse not to own this book because this is the only thing that exists with this information and probably ever will be. What Bob did, and please correct me at any point, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, when your book comes out, that'll be out.
Well, yeah, this is not about me. And I will also say that part of that is your mentorship and your assistance and so much of the stuff that you've provided for illustration purposes and the historic purposes it's priceless stuff, and Bob has been very generous and wonderful to work with on my project, which is forthcoming, but that's another story. Anyway, so what happened was, essentially, in a nutshell, when Surf Raiders was kind of coming to an end, right, when it was waning,
Yes.
you decided, all right, how am I going to spend my time? What am I going to do?
Well, actually, I had started working on the book about the same time I started the Surf Raiders. And the reason that came about is I wanted to find out what the original band set their amplifiers to. Is that the reverb unit, what switches they used on the Jaguars and all that stuff. And so I think the first person I found was Jim Pash from the Safaris. In fact, he lived in the same town as me, which was really weird.
And what town was that at the time?
That was Azusa, California.
Okay. And that's where you guys grew up, basically, Azusa?
Well, no, I grew up in Baldwin Park and then Covina.
Oh, right, Ballroom.
And then we moved to Azusa when we bought our first house.
I know. And that was home base during that whole period.
Yeah, that was it.
And how did you, let's say you said, I want to contact Jim Pash, I need to know his reverb setting. How did you find him?
Found him through the phone book.
Now, there's kids back there that are like, what's a phone book? Yeah, you, Emilio. Talking about you. Suck it, surf police. Sorry. So really, you're just like Pash, boom, called him, called him.
Well, see, I knew the Safaris in the 60s, but I had no transportation, even when they played in Azusa, I couldn't get to the concert. So it wasn't until at the time I started the book when I met Jim was the first time, and then through Jim I met the other Jim, and then Bob Berryhill. So then I just taped everything, as I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I just taped it so I could go back and listen.
I have a quick question. Was Berryhill playing with the Safaris when they reformed in the late 70s, early 80s?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ooh, remember that Safaris punk line song? Wow. Anyway, and then it just snowballed. And then you're like, well, if they're that easy to reach, I'm just going to try and contact everybody.
That's exactly what I started doing. And then when I found Bob Spickard of the Chantays, he gave me references to other people besides the people in the Chantays. So it just kept going, and then some people started contacting me saying, well, I was in a surf band, this band and stuff. And oh, yeah, you're one of the ones I'm looking for. So and then I started writing the stories for Goldmine magazine. And I submitted a lot of stories to them over the years, but that's how that part got going. And then, like I said, I'm doing this the whole time we're doing the Surf Raiders. And so in about 88, I decided I gotta stop the Surf Raiders because I gotta finish this book. I've got so much into it and I don't want it to be lost or anything like that. So that's what I did. We stopped the Surf Raiders, and Neil and Lloyd and Dave and somebody else reformed as another band. I don't remember what they called it. But
does anybody remember what they called it?
I don't. But the thing is, it was all hand typed. An IBM Selectric typewriter. And if you look at the layout of the first edition, you'll see some places where there's the typing and there's a 45 record label. And I typed over to it, went back, came back, and or typed.
You're like doing the spacing, like space.
Before I just found out it was easier just to have it in a square. No computer.
Do you still have old editions of the book for sale?
One copy.
Okay. Okay. Oh.
JP.
There's only one, and I'm asking
Okay.
Also, there's one for raffle.
Oh, cool. Okay. So you might think, well, why would I get that old edition if this new one, expanded one in color exists? Well, there's nothing like the first one, right? Like the OG one from back in the day. It's a special thing. It's a historic thing. It has a different energy. It's different content. It's sort of this interesting, like, mirror view into what it was like back then and what it felt like back then, and it's special. And especially that one, I would highly encourage you guys to look at it, check it out. I mean, it's a piece of history. It's just like John Blair stuff. The latest edition of the discography is incredible and big, But there's nothing like that first one from '78 that's like it's like a little booklet, you know, and it's all hand done. It's like the typewriter font, everything. There's something special about that, you know. I prefer that one. I still go reference that one. I'm like, I want to look this up. Anyway, this one is mega expanded. Color, more illustrations, more bands. How many extra bands are in this one?
This one has 59.
59 bands. Okay?
And I took the picture of the cover. I did that.
And he's a photographer. Cover photographer. Very nice. So, back to the OG idea. What he did is contacted everybody, interviewed them, and compiled it all. So this is really, and most of these guys have long since passed. It happens, right? But he got the information. All those questions you always wanted to ask those guys, Bob asked them and wrote it all out, and here it is. So you'll find it's priceless information for, you know, who was in the bands at what time, at what period in their careers, what gear they were playing, where they played, the releases, the chronology. I mean, the whole thing. And there's funny anecdotes about funny stories, you know. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. I'm telling you, it is a bargain to have this. And you can even use it as a reference book and keep going back and back and back and look stuff up. It's easy to
There's one of the stories that's really funny there about the astronauts when they're talking about buying condoms and filling them up full of water and dropping them off thing down on other people.
like off the balcony. Yeah, that kind of stuff. And this is the only place you're going to read that. It's very, very, very special. I want to ask you about your past, because your past musical life.
Okay.
Because it really didn't start in surf.
Well, to tell you the truth, I actually did.
Really?
When I was in 8th grade at my junior high school graduation dance, there was a band that played called the Apollos. And they were all the blonde showmans and everything and doing surf music, plus some girls would come up and sing a popular song like Angel Baby, stuff like that with them. That was my first taste. But then we moved, and all this time before that, I wanted to play guitar like my grandpa, because I have some neat pictures of me with my grandpa. And let me get my thoughts together here.
Yeah.
And I wanted to play guitar like him, because he was the old bluegrass country stuff like that. He had a whole bunch of brothers, and they used to sit out on the front porch at night and sit there and just play and play and play. Well, anyway, my mom thought it would be a good idea if I took the accordion.
Sweet.
And so I played that up until about the 4th grade. Then I thought, well, I'm ready for a guitar. And my mom signs me up for clarinet.
All right.
So I never got a guitar for that up until when I started high school. And when we moved, my dad bought us, my brother and I, our first radio that we could have and listen to what we wanted to and not just jazz and country. So one day I'm flipping around going through the channels trying to find something, and all of a sudden I get this pipeline. Of course, it took me a while to find out the name of it. And I go, oh man, you know, I got to learn how to play that. But in the meantime, my brother and I were just learning how to play guitar, learning how to form chords and everything else. And and then we just started playing, not surf music, but I have a tape of us doing Pipeline. So it's kind of fun. And let's see here.
Was that, when was the first, like, real band?
What was that?
Like your first real band, when you've decided, like, all right, I'm getting good enough, I want to put a band together.
We were just trying. I actually played in a 3T surf band before my brother and I got together. We started putting like a top 40, and that's what we started on. But I never lost the desire to play surf music. It was with me that whole time. And when I was in the Navy, and I got out, and for the next almost 9 years, I kept thinking to myself, you know, it'd be fun to have a surf band again. So
I mean, once it's in there, once you're bitten by it.
oh well, yeah, it's an infection.
Screwed.
It's an infection that'll never go away.
You heard that from Bob Dalley's night. It's an infection. You're infected, dude. Seriously.
I think Matt Quilter and Steve Sosite call it blonde heroin.
Yeah, addiction. Definitely an addiction also. Infection, addiction. So, let's go to the formation of the Surf Raiders.
Okay, what I did, there used to be a newspaper called the LA Weekly, and you could have classifieds in there. So I put an ad in there, and then there was a local guitar place called the Fret House, so I put a card up there. And one of the first guys that called me was Dave Rodriguez, our drummer. And he asked me, "You don't have to be blue-eyed and blonde hair to play in this band, do you?" So I thought that was pretty cool. And then I got a call from Lloyd, who lived all the way in Simi Valley. Dave lived in San Gabriel Valley, or San Gabriel. And then this guy named Steve Tanner answered the ad from the Fret House. And so we started, they would drive from all the places where they lived to my house to have practice. So, I mean,
Now that's dedication.
yeah, because I mean, at the time my wife lived, it just had Melissa, my daughter, you know, so I didn't want to try to be going out all over the place and leaving them alone.
See, once again, props to you for being a good family man, first and foremost, man. It's very important and respectable.
And then we had our first practice, and you know, it was a little rough. You know, I was still learning how to play the guitar again. and Steve Tanner, he was into the Shadows. You know, he loved doing Apache. But these sessions I would tape, just so I can go back and hear how we sounded and what we needed to improve on and all that stuff. And then a couple of times we had some sax players come over, but they didn't make it past the practice. So,
And at that point, was this all covers?
yes.
Like you guys chose a set, oh, we'll play all the big
Lively
surf
One,
codes.
Dick Dale, you know, all that stuff. It wasn't until Neil came into the band that the idea of originals really started happening.
And then would you guys collaborate, you and Neil, on the originals?
No, actually, the Curl Rider came about in a practice. I just started doing one thing, Neil started doing another thing, and then all of a sudden it actually started in one form and became what it did. And then Neil goes home and he writes Point Conception 63. And I was so jealous because that was such a great song.
It is. It's one of those modern songs that sounds so much like a 60s song. I mean, in all the right ways. It's hard to do. It's a really hard thing to do, and that one just nails it.
And then see with Lloyd, he was actually a lead guitar player, but for some reason or other he wanted to be in the background playing bass and not lead. But in the meantime, he wrote.
I know why.
He wrote a lot of songs, Wave Walking, Swami's Reef, you know, Suicide Point, things like that. It was, and then him and I collaborated on a couple of the songs for the third album, On the Beach. So,
That's great. One of the things I love about you guys is your originals. They're really great. They're just great surf songs, you know, and they still stand up today. And they're unmistakable. You hear them and you know, you're like, yeah, Surf Raiders, gotta be Surf Raiders. And it's so pure. It's a pure, and this is something we can talk about today because there's so much that's not surf music, like in any way, but it gets lumped in there. And I think it's important to know that where's the defining line? What is and what isn't? And what are those elements that actually makes that surf? And that's one of the things I love about you guys. Every tried and true surf in every way from the very beginning through to the end. I mean, it's pure traditional surf music. It might have been in the 80s, but I mean, that spirit is right in the early 60s.
Yeah, in fact, the first reverb I ever owned, I saw a guy had an ad in the paper for a 62 Fender reverb in my town. It'd been in his closet since the Navy, still had hang tags and everything, and I got it for $100.
You don't still have that, do you? I might have $100 in my pocket.
Bob, was a lot of the surf gear pretty cheap to find?
Yeah, well, I started out with the, see, what was I playing?
It was the Tysco, wasn't it? Was that the first one?
Well, that was my first guitar was a Tesco. It was a 64. And I happened to have $65 in my savings account, and my mom took me to a pawn shop, and that's what I got. I got a 63 Tedesco. So that was my first real electric guitar. Prior to that, it was an acoustic Sears guitar that my mom bought my brother and I for Christmas. So, and shortly after that, I got a Sears Silvertone 610-inch speakers cabinet thing that I used to play, and it had that reverb. Boy, did I love the reverb. And then later, I downgraded to a Fender Deluxe Reverb, original 65. And then later, I upgraded to a Vox Super Beetle.
So you got bitten by that Beatles bug.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course. You're human. You have ears. It's natural.
Cause by then I was really into Iron Butterfly.
Oh, and I gotta delete it, baby. Did you, now, this is kind of, we're like going back and forth like a Tarantino movie, but did you, after, let's say in the 60s, after you're done with the surf thing, right, and things started to change, the Beatles, Iron Butterfly, things like that, did you have another band that was like heavier, that was doing that kind of stuff?
Well, heavier, it was a top 40 band. It was a band that my brother and I started, and we called it the Conflicts because we were always fighting with other.
That's a great name, actually.
And then we wound up changing our name to the Iron Horse. And the reason I chose that name is there used to be a TV series on back then called The Iron Horse about trains and all that stuff. And so we tried, I can't remember any of the names we tried, but Iron Horse stuck, and that was the name we had until I went into the Navy.
It's awesome.
Then I was in a band in the Navy on Midway Island.
Wow, really?
Yeah. I played mostly bass, but I did do Surfin' Bird, and we played Wipeout, and stuff like that, so that was still
All right, hang on, wait a minute. I want to really picture this, okay? Here you guys are, Navy guys on Midway Island, in a band, and you're playing Surfin' Bird.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like Platoon for real.
Yeah. It's a drill. No, you can't make this stuff up.
That's so cool, man. Now, I want to ask you about so obviously when you go to that period in the 80s, right, the early 80s, talking about the beginning of the revival, the two main names, you and John and Night Riders. How was that relationship, and how did that start John came first, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And then were you?
Because he did his book, and he had the release party, and he had a single that he recorded for the release party.
Right.
So, and it was through Neil that I found out about John, because he had his book. And I saw that and I go, ooh, I gotta have that. Eventually I got in contact with John. He actually had me try out for John and the Night Riders, but he turned me down. So I had to go.
I wish John was here.
I had to go home and start the surf rate.
Well, you can look at that in a couple different ways. You know, you can say, well, you might have had this amazing rock star experience with John and the Night Riders, but maybe fate came in and said, no, you're meant to start your own band, right? How do you need another one?
Yeah.
You're meant to start your own band, and you're meant to do things like this, you know, that complement John's work. It's a very different thing, but the two complement each other and are equally as important, you know?
Actually, that's how I wanted my first edition to look like. But I didn't know anything about typing in columns, you know, proper grammar, proper punctuation, and all that stuff. So it took 2 editions to get to the third one. At least it's a lot better than the first 2.
Right? Bob, so I remember when you were doing the book, when we were friends then, and one thing I remember about what Bob did was he didn't want to go to any publisher at all. He wanted to publish it himself because we told me this. He didn't want anybody to screw any of that stuff up and consolidate it, make it smaller, make it, you know, take away the fascinating minutia and all that stuff. He did it the way Bob wanted to do it. The editing and all that stuff that made it clean there made it later. But Bob did it the way he felt was right. And that's, I gotta give you that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, better.
No compromise, right? No compromise.
I have straight up square.
Yeah, like
1963, you know, the pictures of the people. Like a lot of the publishers would have just looked at these guys in the bands and thought, oh, well, that's silly. You know, because it was 1988, right? And, oh, these surf bands, look at those stupid kids.
They said it was too narrow of a view. You know, I was just focusing on one type of music. And they thought I should have been writing about anything, everything.
That's why indie always, right?
well, we are certainly grateful, and I mean your legacy. You know, this legacy will last for thousands of years, Bob. The future civilizations after the world is destroyed, you know, that find copies of Surfin guitars will literally like help humanity to rebuild.
I hope they'll be autographed.
Do we have any questions for Bob while we have him here?
Well,
Clint.
so you mentioned the tribute to the Surf Raiders music. Well,
Oh yeah.
Oh, sure.
And that was kind of a weird idea. And I kept thinking to myself, here we have about 17 original songs. And wouldn't it be fun to be able to, I heard covers of The Curl Rider and some of our other stuff before. But I figured, I wonder if I can get some of these 80s bands who would do a cover of a Surf Raider song. And I could put it together on a CD. And, you know, so I started talking to Jonpaul about it, you know, getting his ideas. I started sending letters to every single band that I could think of to see who would want to do it. And at first, a few that started had to back out, but I kept going, and eventually I had to turn bands away, which really a surprise.
Yeah, it could have been a double album, really.
Yeah.
We could have just kept going and going and going. But you know what else is cool about that is you really curated who you wanted to play what song too. I mean, you had a very clear vision. You were like, I want them to do this, I want them to do this. And really the bands really stepped up and just knocked it out of the park. And you put it all
And I told them to do it their own way. That they didn't have to do the way we did it. I just wanted to see how they would interpret it. And it was as the songs started coming in, I'm going, wow.
Question.
Yeah, I first heard about you guys with that Rhino compilation album in the 80s, and which I thought was fantastic. Can you give us a little history on how that came about and how they found who to put on there and how that really generated the second wave?
Well, actually, Richard Foos had contacted me because of the Surf Raiders and everything else, and they had this idea about doing a compilation of surf music. So I got to help them in the process of picking out bands and supplying pictures and doing the liner notes. So yeah, that first thing that came out, including the best of the challengers, I had my fingers really dipped in there to help them do that.
Now, I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt, but this is an important designation. He's not referring to the Rhino Cowabunga box set. He's referring to the first 3-record set that Rhino put out in the 80s. Actually, Melissa, do you still have... Is she there?
Yeah, there's still some of
Do you still have that blue box set, the Knott's Berry Farm one with the hologram on it?
no.
I think we sold that.
Okay. Well,
I know my
it originally came out as a 4-record set in this blue box with a crazy girl hologram on the front, packaged with the Challenger's best of that Rhino put out. But Rhino was very, very, very important and influential on getting that music out to people at that time. And those 3, there was an instrumental one, a vocal one,
And a new wave.
and a new wave one, right? New wave, the modern bands. And that was really, really important for bringing awareness to this music at that point.
Yeah,
that early in the 80s.
That's where Wave Walking made its first appearance, was in the box set and on the album.
Yeah, and the liner notes were great.
They are. And that's, again, another important thing to own. Those records are very important in the history of the whole revival, especially. Did you have a question, Mira?
Yeah, I have a question about when you were doing your first edition, I'm playing surf music, you were doing a kind of revival. Did you got this vision or view about the world related to surf music, or you were just thinking about, the American
I never, even in my wildest dreams, I would have known what was going to happen when I started the Surf Raiders, because I had no big vision of being a worldwide traveling surf band or anything like that. It's just I found some guys who loved surf music, and we would play on Friday nights and Saturdays, and make some gas money and stuff like that. So that was the whole reason to do it, because I loved it and I just wanted to play it again and see if anybody else would like it.
Thank you.
You want to touch on the Salt Lake City newsletter that we did?
Yeah, sure. In addition to the many other things Bob has done and accomplished, adding to his legacy, he ran a surf music fan club for a number of years, and he would put out a newsletter. How often would that come out?
I did it once a quarter. It was called the Salt Lake City Surf Music Appreciation Society.
Say that 5 times fast.
You became a member. You got a little card and everything else with your name on it, and then you get 4 newsletters a year. And then in there, I was using some of my stories and stuff to do little stories, and I would review records, talk about where the bands were playing. And because I was still getting information from my friends in California, so I thought, this is fun. And it was doing okay until about at the end of the 4th year, and I started having medical problems. And so I could no longer do it, so I had to give it up. But, during that time, I used to print catalogs with records I was selling, and I'd mail those out, and I'd sell records online. And, you know, a lot of things that are happening now with the online stuff, I was doing it the hard way.
See, DIY all the way, indie from the beginning, you know? Those are really fun to read because, you know, it's like getting on a time machine back to a time with the reviews and your concert reports and, you know, correspondence with other bands. Like, it was a really special thing. I'm very, 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 very pleased to have finally completed my collection of those this weekend. So I'm like, major win for Geek over here getting those. But yeah, thank you. Yes, you would know. Thank you.
Also for a time up in Salt Lake, I had my own radio show playing surf music. It was one of those free radios where you could bring in your collection and play and things like that. But I did pretty good with it while I was on. It was fun sitting here reading the commercials, you know.
See, you've literally done everything. I mean, it's an amazing life, Bob. You've done so much, and we're so grateful for all of this.
Well, I appreciate everybody coming out to listen to me babble on.
You tell everybody what Bob has for sale.
Yeah, Bob still has a lot of stuff from his collection available over here on this table. And I mean, some of this stuff is one of a kind. You'll never see this ever again.
We have.
And Melissa is here to tell you all about it.
Sorry. So we have original pictures from the first edition book. He also has a lot of signed autographed pictures from just various artists. He has autographed CDs, and then just
fanzines. You got fanzines.
what?
You got he's got the
Fanzine, yeah, he has the Pipeline Instrumental Review. And he does his wish with this trip is to not take anything home. So please help us do that. Come at me with an offer on stuff. We're not unreasonable. We take cash, Venmo, and Square. But one thing that we haven't really had a place to put out is he was talking about Jim Pash, and Jim gave him a bunch of handwritten original sheet music from the Safaris, and we have a collection of that for $100. And we're just gonna all or nothing. And the correction copy sold within like 30 seconds of me saying that. The young lady back there, she already got it. So, but thank you guys. And this, I know people said something about Jeff yesterday being humble, but this gentleman right here will tell you he's the worst guitar player. He can't sing. He doesn't know how to do anything. And everybody in his life that's ever told him he can't do anything, that's why he's done something. His high school guidance counselor told him he couldn't write. He's a published author. So I just, humble is right here.
Alright, let's give it up for Bob Dalley, everybody. Surf music legend.
Thank you very much. This means a lot to me. Thank you.